Today's demo is going to be on contour drawing. So we're going to work with a contour drawing of a still life of brushes. The assignment is to look into your studio and pick out a couple objects that represent you, or it can even be the whole studio. It can be the space that you're working in. So the principle of using contour drawing is to develop your observational skills. So when you're creating a contour drawing, you don't try not to take your pen off the paper. So your eye is just running along the edges of your objects very slowly. You could pretend you're like an ant that's crawling up along the outer edge of whatever your object is. The principle of contour drawing is to develop a sensitivity for line and shape, and we're really not trying to create realistic and perfected three-dimensional drawing on a two-dimensional surface. The drawing in a contour drawing is primarily line-based. We're focusing on line and shape. We're focusing on positive shapes, negative shapes, and we will even get into ambiguous shapes. But the exercise of creating a contour drawing is really to develop your observation skills. You're going to look a lot more closely at your subject if you're glancing at your subject and keeping your eye focused on your subject and not lifting your pencil off the paper. I was working with a senior student on contour drawing. She was the victim of a stroke, and she found that the contour drawing method really helped her redevelop those parts of her brain to keep focus. She would lose herself in a drawing once she started a drawing. If it was a complex subject, she would get lost in the drawing. But this is a really great way to keep your focus on your objects. So in this particular contour drawing, you can see I'm starting with the paint brushes on the left. I'm just keeping my eye on those paint brushes and looking more closely at the detail. When you're working on your contour drawing, it's okay to go back over lines. If you want to thicken a line, you can go back up and over the line. And for this exercise, I'm using graphic illustration pens. I'm using a thicker nib, a 0.1, and I recommend purchasing a set of graphic illustration pens. The Micron pens are a popular brand with students. They might be a little bit more expensive, or you can use a felt tip marker or any black pen you have on hand. And I'm not being too concerned about accuracy, proportional accuracy. I'm more concerned about observation, just catching all the objects in the drawing. And I'm paying close attention to those positive and negative shapes. With your contour drawing, it's okay to go off the page, to enter the page, leave the page, and then enter back in. That's a wonderful compositional trick. You don't want to draw an object in the center of the page. The goal with developing your compositions is to move the viewer through the picture plane so you can enter from the left or enter from below. Typically in the West, we read left to right, so it's more comfortable for people in the West to read left to right, so you can enter your drawing from the bottom left, top left, or the left side of the drawing. When you set up your contour drawings, pay close attention to how you want to move the viewer through your composition, and also pay attention to size and scale relationships. It's nice if you have a variety in size and shape. You may have some long shapes and then wide round shapes, some small objects with texture, or a large smooth object. The nice thing about choosing the still life of brushes is there's a nice variety in the texture of the different brush sizes and shapes. There's also a nice variety in the containers that I have the brushes in. I have one large smooth vase and then two long narrow vases. I'd like to point out that I'm not lifting my arm or my pen from the picture plane. I'm trying to keep that pen on the paper as I'm looking at my drawing. Now this contour drawing is just a regular contour drawing. I'm sure you've heard of blind contour drawing, and we'll also do that as an exercise. The blind contour drawing is when you're looking at your object and you do not look at your paper. So we'll also do that where you're looking at your object or the scene in your studio and you're drawing on the paper without looking at the paper. The goal in that exercise, once again, is really just to practice slowing down and observing how things are put together. And as you're observing, you're paying close attention to surfaces, if it's a smooth surface, a rough surface, or texture. You're paying attention to width, shape. Is it a round shape, a long shape? You're thinking about all of this when you're setting up your still life or when you're actually drawing it. And another reminder, it's okay to go back over lines to thicken the line. You may want to pay attention to your line quality. You can have thick and thin lines, and once you go over a line repetitively, it will give it additional value. Keeping in mind that contrast and thick lines will bring the viewer to the foreground, and hairline, thin lines will recede in space. So you can create depth with the line quality that you use in your contour drawing assignment. As you see, I'm going right through lines that were already drawn, and that's okay to do as well. And in this particular case, I'm just going over the vase and indicating a reflection, the front light on the left edge of the vase. So as you're sketching, pay attention to the way light hits an object. Pay attention to the shadows, the light source, reflections, texture. All these little additional elements are going to serve to enhance your drawing. And later we'll go over value, texture in the drawing and how it's used to enhance the drawing.